Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're really digging into the war between Israel and Iran. It's dominating headlines, but this isn't something that just happened overnight.
No, definitely not.
It feels like, the result of years, maybe decades of maneuvering, ideology, geopolitics.
Exactly. All coming to a head.
Our mission today is to get past the breaking news, sort of peel back the layers, and look at the deeper motivations, the intentions that got us here. We've gone through a lot of material, lots of different sources to try and give you the clearest picture.
That's right. We're not looking at some sudden flare-up. We're tracing the connections, the past skirmishes, the assassinations, cyber attacks, proxy fights,
Yeah.
and how they all connect to this direct confrontation we're seeing right now.
Mhm.
And we'll look at the different players inside and outside the region and how they're shaping things. The consequences are huge.
Okay, let's unpack this first part. The common idea is often that Israel's actions are, purely reactive. But our sources suggest something else, right? About a longer-term strategy.
Yes, that's a key insight. It seems Israeli military planners, politicians too, they've been signaling for a long time that they needed to, well, neutralize what they see as Iran's existential threat,
Especially the nuclear program.
especially the nuclear program, yeah. Think of leaders like Netanyahu making these very public appeals about the nuclear danger. Remember those diagrams of the UN?
Oh, yeah, the cartoon bomb.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Simplistic, maybe, but our sources suggest it wasn't just talk. It was about preparing the ground internationally for a confrontation they were likely already planning.
That's fascinating, the public priming aspect. But what about actions? Beyond the speeches, what points to this preemptive strategy?
Well, there's a definite preemptive mindset there, driven by, a deep-seated belief in self-preservation. You see it in things like major cyber warfare operations.
Like Stuxnet.
Stuxnet is the big one, yeah. Allegedly developed with the U.S., a really groundbreaking digital weapon. It physically damaged Iran's centrifuges without dropping a single bomb. That's preemptive.
Absolutely.
And then you have the targeted assassinations of Iranian nuclear scientists, plus covert support for anti-regime groups inside Iran.
So when you put the public statements and these covert actions together,
It really underscores that this current war footing, it isn't just a defensive reflex. It looks much more like the culmination of, a very long-laid, carefully thought-out strategy.
okay, so Israel was preparing for this kind of scenario for a long time, knowing that. How did this long game finally break out into the open warfare we see now? Our sources really stress this is a major shift.
It absolutely is. If you look back, previously, a lot of the conflict was indirect. It was fought through proxies.
Right, groups acting on their behalf.
Exactly. You think of Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, allegedly with Iranian support, and then Israel hitting Iranian targets in Syria. It was all sort of deniable, fought in the shadows.
And now, what's the fundamental difference?
Now, well, the lines are much, much clearer. The main actors are directly involved. You have missile exchanges, actual naval blockades, drone warfare. These are open acts of war between the two states.
No more proxies, essentially.
Well, proxies might still be involved, but the direct state-to-state element is front and center. Iran's Revolutionary Guard launching direct strikes on Israeli positions, Israel hitting back with long-range attacks. Both sides are openly admitting it now.
Okay.
And that's the transformation. It signifies this regional Cold War turning hot, and the consequences, the casualties, civilian and military, are devastating, not just for them, but the whole region.
It really does feel like the gloves are off, as you said. So as this direct fight unfolds, let's look at some key players. Our sources pointed to a somewhat unexpected figure gaining prominence, Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi. He has no official power, obviously, but he's become a symbol for some Iranians.
Yes, particularly in the diaspora, but also for some inside Iran who are disillusioned with the current regime. It raises a question, why is he significant now?
Right. What's his role in this war context?
Well, his public stance against the regime has gotten much stronger during the war. Instead of pushing for, say, de-escalation or peace talks, he's actually at times seemed to fan the flames. He frames the war as maybe a necessary evil to topple the government.
That's a powerful message, I imagine, for Iranians who dream of regime change. But what's the potential cost? What are the downsides of that rhetoric?
The cost is potentially huge. I mean, the war is already hammering Iran's economy, stirring up internal divisions. Life for ordinary Iranians is getting harder under sanctions and repression. So while the Crown Prince's message might give hope to some, others see it as, well, reckless, maybe disconnected from the actual suffering on the ground.
Because his focus is regime change, above all else.
Pretty much. And that focus can overshadow the immediate reality, which is that this war could lead to just, long-term chaos, a humanitarian disaster, even more economic collapse.
Yeah.
So it's a gamble, playing to hope, but risking deeper misery.
Okay, and then there's the U.S. America's role here is impossible to separate from its history with Iran, as our sources highlight. Before 1979, Iran under the Shah was a very close U.S. ally.
A very close ally, yes, but also, you could argue, economically and culturally quite subservient.
Yeah.
U.S. companies did very well there. American influence was enormous.
And since the revolution.
Since '79, Iran has really positioned itself as a symbol of resistance to Western, particularly American, influence in the Middle East. It aligns with groups and states that oppose U.S. interests.
So this current war, from a U.S. perspective, it's more than just supporting Israel.
According to some critics we looked at, yes.
Mm-hmm.
They argue it presents an opportunity not just to back Israel, its key ally, but potentially to reshape Iran's entire political direction.
Reshape how? What would be the goal, according to these critics?
The argument is that by providing Israel with intelligence, military aid, diplomatic cover, the U.S. is effectively trying to reverse Iran's post-revolution independence, to roll it back.
Back to what, though?
The critics claim the endgame is what they call a Neopaladi Iran. Basically, an Iran that's westernized again, economically open to U.S. interests, strategically aligned with Washington, like under the Shah.
Wow.
And this long-term objective, our sources suggest, helps explain why U.S. support for Israel in this conflict remains so strong, even with the high humanitarian costs and regional instability. It's seen as a geopolitical strategy, not just crisis response.
And finally, let's touch on Israel's perspective again. Our sources emphasize it's not just about security calculations. There's a deep ideological element to it.
Yes, that's crucial. What's really striking is how the long-held Zionist vision, the dream of restoring a safe, sovereign Jewish homeland, is now clashing quite starkly with the realities of the region, the demographics, the politics, the beliefs of others there.
So while for many Israelis this war fits into their narrative of survival,
Right, it's seen as essential for survival.
how does that ideology, that narrative, look from the outside or to critics, based on our research?
Well, to critics, it can appear rigid, perhaps unwilling to fully accept coexistence or compromise with neighbors. The research suggests that, for some observers, this pursuit of a holy Jewish land seems to prioritize that vision over achieving broader peace or stability.
So that ideological lens shapes the military strategy.
It shapes the strategy, absolutely, but it also deeply influences how
A huge amount today. It's clear from this deep dive that the Israel-Iran war isn't simply a military clash. It's really a clash of visions, isn't it? About identity, power, history, where things are headed.
Absolutely. You've got Israel's long-term strategy, Iran's ideological determination, the ambitions of, exiled figures, the strategic aims of the U.S. It's all woven together in this incredibly complex and dangerous way. It really feels like a turning point for the Middle East.
And for those of us watching, whether in Ethiopia or anywhere else, the takeaway seems to be the need to look beyond those easy surface-level loyalties. Understanding the real economic, political, human stakes seems vital. Because just picking a side without grasping what that support actually means, well, it risks just making us echo chambers for someone else's agenda rather than, thoughtful people engaging with the world.
Couldn't agree more. In a world where war is instantly streamed, tweeted, debated everywhere, that responsibility to think critically, to look deeper, it's never been more important. Hopefully this deep dive has given you all some new things to think about.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep digging, keep asking questions, and stay well informed.